What's going down, D-Gens? We are finally here to week 1 of the playoffs, wild card weekend. It's gonna be something. Anyways, let's go right into it. So we go from 1-0 week to a 1-2 week, which sucked ass. But it was last week of the NFL season, a little bit hard to cap. Didn't work out. It was primarily props, honestly. Could have been a much better week with just a little tweak here and there, but it didn't, so it's fine. Again, week 18 moving forward, we do try to play off of just props, and primarily we really try to play guys who are, trying to get their bonuses. Dalton Schultz did win me a pretty decent amount of money. Would have won even more had he gotten to 6 catches instead of 5, but I digress. Let's move into this week, and we can actually break down more of the games. We know who's actually playing, that everybody's trying, and everybody has a clear motive. It's not just, let's just try to get this over with and be healthy. So, for the week, guys, my number one pick, favorite pick, whatever you want to call it, is Browns -2. That has moved to 2.5. And to be honest with you, it may be at -3 by the time you see this video. I did post it late, and I apologize for that. But there are a lot of moving pieces this week. And because there's not a whole lot of difference between 2 and 2.5, didn't really need to put out the video ASAP. So either way, if you can get it at 2.5, great. I love it. If you get it at 3, I still like it. But depending on what line it's at or what the juice is at, if you can get it to -2.5 and stay under -135, I like it just as much. So give me the Browns -2, -2.5, or again, even up to the -3. Like I said, 2.5 is really the number that I had for this game, though. So just a quick reason as to why I'm picking that. So number one, Houston Texans, and I think it's been mentioned a couple places already, Houston Texans have played the number one easiest schedule of opposing quarterbacks. Just have not really had a whole lot of teams test them as far as in the secondary. It's just, their division was not super strong to begin with, and then the people that they ended up having to play against, and they even played a lot of backups like Gardner Minshew and Will Levis that really weren't the starters at the beginning of the season. So that's number one. Number two, Joe Flacco has been playing lights out. The Browns actually, for all intent and purposes, had a bye week last week. Yes, it was an away game, and they're in a, quote, back-to-back away games. But in my experience, as far as handicapping as well as tracking data for the NFL, a 2-week sample is not typically enough to make a huge difference one way or the other when it comes to travel. But secondly, like I said, that number would, expectedly get even smaller, mean even less, when one team essentially treated it as a bye week. The away team hasn't played, in a week. So that's always good. Also, though, as far as Houston Texans are concerned, you have a lot of trends working against them. And that's not to say that they can't overcome those things, or that it's completely impossible. So don't hear what I'm not saying. But rookie quarterbacks are not great in their first playoff appearance, right, or in the playoffs in general. Yes, there have been a handful that have been able to win. There have even been a handful that have been able to make it, make a deep run. Usually, though, they have really good coaches. They have a really good team around them, and it just ends up being, somewhere where the team is really, really good. The quarterback just didn't make a huge, negative impact. Think of like Russell Wilson, right? His rookie year in the league. That being said, one thing that they don't have going for them, and I apologize if you're hearing music here, that is not me. That's some jackass around me. But anyways, as far as, trends, the coach, like I said, is typically pretty good if he's able to get a rookie quarterback a win, even just one win in the playoffs. And in this case, we have a rookie head coach. Yes, obviously he's been coaching, and but that's to be expected, right? There has never been an NFL coach that became a head coach, after being a chemistry teacher. Like, these guys are always in the arena, and so for him to be a first-time head coach in the playoffs is a negative trend all its own, and you're going to partner that with a rookie quarterback. And then on top of that, you're going to pair all of that with a team that is just not entirely healthy. They're not the most banged up team in the NFL in the playoffs, at least, but they are not even in the top half of healthiest. You have a lot of receivers either not playing or playing banged up. Tank Dell, which would have really made a difference in this one, is obviously not playing with his broken leg. You have a lot of stuff working against these guys. The Browns are a veteran team. They're healthy. They're coming off a bye week. They have a great coach who's been an amazing coach for them for years now. He actually, if you don't recall, he took this team from being kind of a joke, right, to not even really sniffing the playoffs, to in the playoffs and, a real contender. And like I said, he's only been there this is going to be his third year. So he's got the experience, he's got the players, he's got the veterans. I know people are saying Flacco could maybe, go tits up at any point. But aside from Flacco just being a veteran, I will say that he is playing with almost like a reckless abandon. Like, he doesn't give a shit. He's there to make as much money as he can, win as much as he can, and get as far as he can to get all the money, because this may be his last opportunity. And if he makes an ass of himself, at least if I was in his position, screw it. Like, I'm a 40-year-old damn quarterback. I don't give a shit. I'm not coming here next year. I'll do whatever I want to do. So I'm not worried about that portion of it. And I do believe that compared to all the other quarterbacks that Stefanski was having to use, Flacco actually gives him the most leeway. He gives him someone with a really good arm, who can get downfield, who's not going to play super conservative, and can do exactly what he wants to do. I think it's just a really good match. So for all of those reasons, give me the Browns minus the 2 or the 2.5, like I said earlier. Lastly, you'll notice I'm not going over a whole lot of stats and DVOA stuff. So there is one, possibly two things that I really do look at for the playoffs when it comes to NFL stuff. The DVOA is great and all, but I have noticed in the years that I've done this, it's about 5 years now, where I've tracked the DVOA stats into the playoffs, and they just really don't account for a lot of what's going on with the playoffs. It's just not a very good way to do your handicapping for this time of the season. And one thing that I've discussed on here, but I just have not really put it on paper or into words, is that throughout the NFL season, you have to consistently be changing your handicapping methods, and you have to kind of know this going into the season, because each portion of the season is going to require a different handicapping method. And I think that's why a lot of you, or a lot of people out there in general, who maybe have a great system, you have a great data analysis and tracking and all that kind of stuff, just don't become profitable winners, is because you see something and it works, but it doesn't work for the entire season, and either you scrap the idea or you try to make it work for the entire season, and it's just not going to work. There's too many moving pieces. So for that reason, in the playoffs, we don't go by that. In the playoffs, there's two things that we're looking at. One of them is strength of schedule. The second portion of it is margin of victory. So both of those items, just so you guys know, do favor the Browns. The Browns have had the more difficult schedule than the Texans, as well as the margin of victory has been more for the Browns. The algorithm that I have been able to put together, which accounts for both, again, margin of victory and strength of schedule, does have the Browns by at least a 5-point favorite, so you are getting value there. But aside from that, we just have, again, a lot of stuff not really going the Texans' way. The offense, again, has not really played a whole lot of great, teams. They even lost to a team like the Panthers this year, giving the Panthers one of their only 2 wins this year. So, sorry to keep rambling about that game, but the Browns is, again, my favorite pick for the week. Second favorite play here is actually the teaser, which is the Bills-Cowboys. Now, as of right now, the Bills game is off the board. They just postponed it. But if you had already gotten down, it's going to stick for most places. A lot of the books did keep like the all wagers active kind of thing for this week, because they knew something like this could happen. Either way, though, give me the 7-point teaser. Yes, it is a lot. It's minus 130 in most places. It's going to be the Bills down to minus 2.5, the Cowboys down to a pick 'em. Now, both of these teams obviously home favorites. Secondly, though, both of these teams just have immense offensive edges on their opponents. The Steelers, not really looking good any which way, whether it's offensively, defensively. Yes, they ended up with 10 wins. It was a pretty fraudulent 10 wins. One game that comes into mind in particular was against the Ravens, where the Ravens, at least in the first matchup, really should have won that game. They kept shooting themselves in the foot. And it was just, I think it was more the Ravens giving them that game than the Steelers winning it. And I would honestly say that a lot of their wins were pretty similar. I mean, yeah, maybe the defense did, they did do their part. But a lot of the time it was the offense that they were going against just not taking advantage of what was given to them. In that case, as far as the defense is concerned, TJ Watt not playing in this game is a huge difference. If you are following the Steelers on a year-to-year basis, you probably remember last time the Steelers had to play without TJ Watt, this defense just did not look even remotely effective. It's such a huge difference, a huge impact that TJ Watt makes, that not having him on the field